Thank you all for joining the weekly wave. Before we get started, I do want to thank everyone that was able to attend our training last week. And for those who don't, the information is posted on our documents and guides page. So please feel free to go through the slides. And if you have questions, you can always reach out. I do want to also mention that we have a new executive director for data information systems at the state, and that is June Jared. So we want to welcome her, and we're going to go ahead and get started with our slides. First thing I want to talk about is when you're requesting state assistance, if you could always include your name and phone number on the request, that way we can get back with you if we have questions about anything. And we ask that you're not providing, that you always provide the student STN and local ID only. We really don't want to see the student name or date of birth, any personal information for the student. And that will include when you send emails to studentdatainfo@sde.ok.gov, anything in the Teams group chats, or any of our personal email boxes. Just please send the STN and local ID only, because if we have that, we can locate your student with no problem. State testing numbers. That access moved about a year ago to the single sign-on, but we're still having people look for it on the wave, and it's no longer there. I'll show you where it's at in a minute, though. Students that are located here are the ones that cannot automatically be assigned an STN. And as far as assignment for that, we do have a flow chart that's available for you to review on the student data information guides and documents and guides on the State Department's website. So please feel free to check that out, because it tells you that you're going to need like the name, birth date, and things of that nature in order for it to not automatically assign, but for a student to actually go through the system to get a STN. Also, until a student is assigned an STN, they will not appear in any of your reports. So if you're having issues with determining if it's the right student or if it needs a new STN created, there's a place in the STN tool that you can go in and actually request state assistance. It's first it asks you if the student is new to an Oklahoma school, and I think the questions are yes, no, or possibly unsure. And you click that, the next page will give you a little tab or block at the bottom that says contact OSDE. When you do that, provide your name, number, and any details, and if we have questions, we can get back to you on that. So when accessing the state testing number, and I realize this slide is really slow, or not slow, but it's really little. It's going to be under the single sign-on, and you can't see it very well, but it's at the bottom here where it says state testing number system. So that's how you would go about accessing the STN tool. Next thing I want to talk about is our ownership wizard application. It's also located on single sign-on. Last year, it was available also on the wave, and it has been removed. So you can only find your conflicts on single sign-on. And so if you find a student that has a conflict with themselves, if you'll provide the student's STN in the school that you're showing in conflict, or if it's your school, send that information to studentdatainfo@sde.ok.gov. I know about a week ago, we did a mass delete, and I think it cleared a lot of those conflicts with your own district out. So if you're seeing any more of those, just send us an email and let us know. Also, keep in mind, if you have a student who's enrolled at a class, a lot of districts are coming up on that 10th day. And if you have a conflict on the wizard, it could be that the student didn't enroll in your district, they actually enrolled in someone else's. And when you drop that student from your student information system, it should clear out that error. I know that there are some student information systems you can't actually do a drop, and you have to change your start date to the day that you started, and I think that removes it as well. So if you have any questions about that, please just reach out to us. Data validation. So we're asking that you go into the Wave and you check your data validation issue for data validation issues. And if you need any direction in resolving those, again, you can contact us and we'd be more than happy to help you. You can send an email at studentdatainfo@sde.ok.gov. And the path that you go to actually find those, the data validation issues, is you'll go to your district tab at the top on the Wave, data validation and data validation wizard, and it will list any errors that are populating for your district. Another thing we need you to look at is XSD errors. And what they are is when data sent from your SIS doesn't meet the minimum validation requirements, or there's bad data won't enter the state system for reporting. So how you correct it is you reach out to your SIS vendor, and where you find those errors is still under like the district XSD error validation error wizard, and then it lists the issues that you need to correct. You can also tell if you have them by your dashboard on the Wave. It's the bottom bullet on here that just says XSD errors. And also the people that can access that are your district level users. So please be sure that you're checking those. And the way to actually get them correct with your vendor is you'll go in and and I know this is kind of jumbled, but it's got the date that was received, the object, which is student personal in this example, and there's a description, the error description. So you can expand, there's also an XML file. You can expand the XML file and the error description, copy those into an email and send those to your appropriate vendor, and they'll be able to assist in helping you get that cleared from your system. Okay, I want to talk about some dates that we need to remember. So class size, it opened today and it closes on October 15th, but today through September 14th, it's only available for you to read only. It's only read only access. So in order for you to go in and make changes in your student information system. And then on the 15th of September, it will actually open for certification. For right now, if you'll access the Wave integration tab on the class size verification app, go in and make sure you're checking your teacher certifications, your course list, and your students, because that will let you know if there's any changes that need to occur in your SIS. So that's one thing you really need to be looking at right now, so you can clear those out before it goes live for certification. If you're experiencing any data issues in relation to this, you need to send an email to studentdatainfo@sde.ok.gov. Or if you're having any type of process or app issues, you want to contact Ryan Piper, and he can be reached at 405-521-3335 or ryan.piper@sde.ok.gov. Other dates you need to keep in mind is October 1st. It opens on September 7th and it will close on October 17th. And since child count is in the same application this reporting time, it opens the same day and closes the same day. First quarter statistical report, it will open on September the 6th and it closes on November 30th. The close date, though, actually depends upon your RAOs, because if they meet you'll have to have it certified by the time your RAOs come out to meet with you. Also, if you're setting up new WAVE accounts, so in order to set up a new WAVE account, your superintendents must provide the WAVE access in SSO for you. And then once you've been given that access, new employees will have to contact the service desk at omes.ok.gov, and you'll need to request an affiliate's login. Now that is going to sometimes takes up to 24 hours for the access to show up, but those are the steps that need to be taken in order for you to get access to the WAVE if you don't already have it. Now, we've had several calls about people that have issues accessing the WAVE, but they do have access. They've been given the access and they have an affiliate's login. And what you need to do if you're experiencing this issue, go to your SSO page, click on Open the WAVE, log in with your user ID, which is normally your SSO username at affiliates.ok.gov. When you get to the page asking for the Microsoft page, use the same login information as above. When you get to the password part, click Forgot Your Password, and the system will email you a temporary password, and then you'll have to change your password. If for some reason those steps do not work, you need to reach out to the service desk at omes.ok.gov and request a password change. And always remember, if you have questions or need any resource documentation, you can find that at studentdatainfo at sde.ok.gov for questions, or you can go on the SDE website under Student Information Documents and Guides, and we have the links to these videos that we do every week, and we also have the slideshow that we present. There's other great information like our reporting documents, requirements documents, WAVE requirement documents. It's all available and accessible at this link provided. So that's all I have for the actual call. So I see we have several questions in the chat, and I will get to that right now. Oh, Kelly says, yay, June. So Margaret wants to know if we'll post the video of the new system that was demonstrated.
She's wanting the demo of the new certification system that was shown during the WAVE training sessions last week. I don't think we have that posted yet, but we will get that posted.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely do that, Margaret. June, you're asking, are you referring to the STN number in SSO?
Yeah, I think I've answered most of these, Nancy. And Cody got the link to the Airtable that's been updated and is posted on the SDE website.
Yes. Okay. Have you gone through most of them, June? Or
yes, I have. How long is it taking to clear out errors on the ownership wizard?
Well, I mean, once they resolve, or the other district works out their dates and they're not in sync with each other, it should clear pretty quickly within an hour or so. If it's not, then there's more to the issue, and they might want to reach out to us at the student data info email address.
Exit codes for students who have not shown up and there's no contact. I listed 2 exit codes that are possibilities to use. 1931, 3502. If you get a request for records in the next couple, I mean, anytime throughout the year, you can go back and update that to a transfer to other school or out of state, whichever applies. Make sure you do mark those as no-shows, or however your system handles that.
Yeah.
I'm training for the class size verification. So The Department of Accreditation is planning to have some live sessions like they did last year, where you guys will get invites to those. You can join the session. There'll be training walkthroughs, and then they'll hang on and answer your questions and help you with individual issues. So there are training documents that were produced during the summer, but they will be updated. There's been some changes throughout the summer, and so those will be updated and should be available for you when those training sessions are. Nancy, I kind of missed the part. I was answering some questions about class size.
Uh-huh.
You know what we should be looking at during this read-only time.
Yes, you need to be looking in the student or the wave integration piece, and you need to be looking at your teacher certifications, your course list, and your student list.
And the student list is going to be they're showing up in that student list with error indicators or warning indicators that's related to their section enrollment. It's a section enrollment issue. They're in your student information system, but for some reason they're not connecting in a class or a section.
Okay, and we have a question about when a transfer is creating. Did you do that one already?
No, I do not know the answer to that. So
our parents and guardians that are on the transfer form sent emails. Yes, they are. They're supposed to be getting notified every time the status changes. They should get an email. If they're not, we need to verify their email address, and they might need to check their junk email and that kind of stuff. So
can I ask a question on the 10-day or more? Are we supposed to keep our students on roll even though they didn't show up? Instead of deleting their yearly record, we're now supposed to keep them for 10 days and then just exit them with a no-show?
You can do it either way. It's good practice to have a tracking record that they were enrolled, that, you know, the parents, you had no contact with them, but you would need to exit them on the same date. I mean, that enrollment record should not come at all. So if you keep it, generally what a lot of districts will do is they'll use like an 8-1 entry and an 8-5 exit or something similar that's outside of the first day of your term for tracking purposes. But I wouldn't recommend that you just delete the record, because that's where you're going to document that why they didn't show, that you've had no contact or they missed 10 days, however you choose to do that in your district. Okay. But they will, I think it's a good practice if they don't show and they were expected to show, that you have that historical data there to look at.
June.
Yes.
This is Lori. So are you saying that it's going to come to us as they were there for a day, membership for a day?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying.
If they take care of it before their first start of school, okay, it shouldn't come to you at all.
Okay, I thought that's what you were saying, but then I was hearing something else and it was kind of like, we can't do that. So, okay, gotcha.
Okay, Eileen, I am not sure what the timeline is for Ed Plan to start updating the student enrollments, but I can check and get back to you on that. And Joseph, clarification on virtual students. Are we supposed to have their basis of admission set to RV on or RV off? Are we exclusively using medium of instruction? You can still use RV on and RV off. You can use resident. We're going to be pulling that information from the medium of instruction though. So, I mean, those codes are still active codes. It's whatever your district chooses to use.
They may or may not help you for internal purposes, and it might help you to have a cross check of are all of your sections coded correctly to handle those students, but that's not where that status is going to be determined for the student. That will be from the medium of instruction on the section level.
Okay, there's a question: when errors are corrected, how long does it take for the error not to show up under errors issues section? Are you referring, Rick, to the class size? Are you referring to the wave? I'm not really sure. So And if you want to take yourself off mute and just respond, that'd be great. Or you can send it in the chat, but I'm going to move on until I hear your response. Okay. While viewing class size, all of my students have exclamation points. Can you give guidance? Gina, I'm gonna let you.
I can relate to this because we looked at my previous school's data and we're the same way. So we're kind of looking at what's going to resolve that. The first thing that came to my mind is that I had written a SQL script to update the first day of school or the first enrollment date for all of those students. So I suspect that maybe my data needed to be deleted and repulled. I haven't gone in today to see if that has resolved the issue, but it's going to be related to, it's telling you that for some reason those students don't have section enrollment records. So first of all, think about, did you make any changes to the student's first day of school? And if you did not, then we probably need to send a ticket in and look at your section enrollment for that school and just see what we're seeing on our side.
Okay. Another question related to class size. If it's read only, does it just allow you to see teachers, courses, and total student population, but not yet drill down into which teacher has which student or which subjects? It doesn't allow me to click on the teacher and then have their specific enrollments pop up.
There should be 2 buttons that become active when they open it up today. That does allow you to select a teacher and then see the students in their list. When I previewed it the day before, that tool was not active at the time in the testing environment that I was in. So that is what I have been told, that you should have the ability to do that.
And Amanda, if you're not seeing it, be sure to reach out to Ryan and let him know that.
Yes.
Okay, Darla, clarification. We can allow students to remain active in our SIS for 10 days before we go back and drop the students as no-shows.
No.
I've been told that if we do not have pockets in seats, that they're to be dropped on the first day. This causes so much work for us. So,
Lori, do you want to talk about that? Are you still on the call?
Yes, I'm still on the call, but I don't think I was paying any attention to what you're talking about because I was.
So students who don't show up for school, we don't want to keep them in, they cannot be enrolled until they actually come to school and they are in a class section. So they
Correct.
never belong to you until they show up.
Until they show up. So if they're sick on the first day of school, you can't count them the first day of school.
and
Right,
I
you
can
can change your
speak
enrollment
from
date.
another district perspective because we did keep them on roll for 10 days. And if they didn't show up, we dropped them. But if they showed up on the second day, we changed the start date to that date. So
You can't keep them on for 10 days
no.
waiting to see where they went. If they're not there the first day, I don't know how everyone's system works and you guys know more of that because you've been out there, but they cannot be counted.
This is a problematic area. It is labor intensive, but you do have to keep changing those start of school dates for those students until they come, or until whatever date your district decides we're going to drop them if they're not here on day 3 or day 4 or day 5, and you get them out of your current membership. You can use a drop date of 8/1/81. It's something that's prior to your first day of school. If you want to keep a historic record of that, but you don't leave them on membership. Their membership start date is the day they actually show up to school. And if they don't show up to school, there is no membership start date in your term.
Okay, the next one is, do we send anything direct from our SIS to Ed Plan? Once rollover occurs, is there any reason data from our SIS would not go to Ed Plan?
Okay, this is Dina, and I specifically asked that question because I have to answer some questions today, to be quite frank. But there's something I'm reading. I've got a couple different years of guidance that I've kind of been trying to look at, but but basically, there's something in the ed plan, updating ed plan records at enrollment from the State Department that said something about that a student may not show up and they might not be in ed plan because of whenever your SIS sends stuff to the wave, basically is what it's saying. But once we're turned on and once the rollovers were finished, like I think August the 7th is when they finished the ed plan rollover or something like that. If our stuff is populating to the wave, it should be going to ed plan. Is that correct? I mean, there's no other piece that I need to turn on or flip a switch or anything else to go to ed plan. Once I'm sending to you, it should be rolling once you're rolling to ed plan. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, but it's not as automatic a process as we might think it is. It's a file exchange that goes nightly.
Okay.
But other issues that you might also see, Dina, is if the student is still associated with another district in ed plan, you won't see them. So if that student is not showing up in any of the wave error wizards and everything should be going through, you may need to contact ed plan and say, there's no wave errors, the student is clear, can you tell me why? And they may find that the other district, if it's a student that has transferred in, still has them associated with their school, so they've not released those records in ed plan yet.
So let me ask on that note, June. So like when the SIS stuff happens and the kid moves from one district to the other, like, and it's updated at the wave and it does the nightly update or whatever, but because it can be anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. I mean, is it possible that it takes 72 hours for, let's say, Bridge Creek for it to come off of their ed plan and another 72 hours for it to go over to ours? Like, do you see what I'm asking?
No, those aren't I don't think those are the same issues.
Okay.
It's the school has to release their IEP. So the other school has to send an end record or like an end date, or that the student is no longer a member, has membership in that school. And if they have an end date at that student's record, maybe they're hanging on to the kid and changing the start date for 4 or 5 days to see if he's going to show, or they haven't received a request for records and taking them out of their system, they'll still be connected to them in ed plan. So and that's a different step.
Okay, so one just quick question to make sure I'm clear on this. So like if a kid leaves us that's on an IEP and I've dropped them or deleted it, whatever, they're not on my system anymore and they're in Norman, is my special ed supposed to go into ed plan and remove them from ed plan?
As long as they have an end date, that should happen without issue in ed plan.
Okay. So it's end date thing. Okay.
Hey, June.
Yes.
This is Cindy with Oklahoma City. At one point, I believe that there were specific loss codes that affected whether they actually came off ed plan or not. I don't remember exactly what they are.
Yeah, I know that yes, they kind of combine some of those codes, and in ed plan, there is a place that they can go in and look at, and they can reconcile those students that have left, and they have to kind of for some of them, they have to manually update those exit codes or exit reasons. I think it's the exit reason. So, get with with the special ed department at your site and ask them how they're doing that process. I don't know that I'm not really sure how it impacts other than some of their reports. I just know that in our district, when we had problems, we couldn't get a kid to come through and everything was fine on the SIS side, then we would put in a ticket to ed plan and they would generally find, oh, they still belong to another district. That other district hasn't released them yet. And I can't tell you all of the processes on the ed plan side to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Chrissy, I will get with the developers and let them know that the students are only getting a denied email on the transfer app. So thank you for letting us know that's what they're receiving. Jana says she's got access to the class size verification read only. Right now, everyone's read only. Superintendents can certify, but can we access it? Are you talking, Jana, about the certify part? because, I mean, I think that's going to be based upon the permissions of the superintendent.
Yeah, I just want to know if I can see it without having to go in and have her access it. If I can just take a look at it and see what I need to work on.
Yes, if you've got read only, you should be able to go in there and look at what your issues are, so you know where to make your corrections.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Someone else waiting for Ed Plan to update. The questions. One more question about virtual students. Should they have the Alt Ed student field set on the OK State page?
So virtual students are different. It's a different indicator than Alt Ed student. You could have an Alt Ed student who is served virtually, but the Alt Ed indicator is whether or not the student is enrolled in your Alt Ed program. And there's some criteria for that. And then if the student is actually an Alt Ed student, there is an indicator that needs to be selected in wherever that location is in your local SIS.
Okay, thanks, Jean. Karen has asked if you had a student enrolled on August 11th and there were a no-show and you dropped them the same date. So you entered it August 11th and dropped August 11th. Does she need to change it prior to August 11th start date? I think you need to reach out to your SIS vendor and see which way eliminates a student from being sent to us. I think it's the same date, but I'm not gonna, I think you need to reach out to your SIS. Emily, I know you're on the call. Do you know if that's how WinGauge works?
So WinGauge schools, we do not want a student that did not walk in the door in the bi-year enrollment. So if you have a student, let's say the mom filled out the enrollment paperwork, the student was supposed to be in the classroom on 8/11, the student did not show up and has not showed up, you guys just delete the yearly record that this and that's it. They stop reporting to the state.
Okay,
So
great.
WinGauge people, you guys just delete their yearly record. If they are not allowed in the door, if they didn't walk in the door, your REO is going to make you delete the yearly record come October 1 when they do your audit. So
Okay, well, I'm using Infinite Campus.
that'd be June.
So Karen, what most Infinite Campus users do, you can do one of two things. You can use a start and end date that are before your school's first your first date. For example, 8/1. That's what a lot of schools will use. 8/1 and 8/1 or 8/1 and 8/5. Just kind of helps them keep track. Or you can delete the record, either one.
Okay,
Right,
they told us not to delete the record because of Ed Plan.
okay.
We,
You do not have to delete the record as long as you keep it outside. You keep it before your start of school. You mark it as a no-show in Infinite Campus, and that will keep it from going to the state.
Okay, if you have August 11th and August 11th and have no show click, then it should not go to the state then, right?
Do not use August 11th because
Okay,
the student never came to your class, so you want to really move it far outside that first day of school.
okay, that's what I was needing to know. Thank you.
Dusty, I've got Ryan's information up on the screen if you want to capture it, his email and phone number. Carrie Newman said, when you drop them, just backdate the drop. So Darla, she had a parent call the SDE and was told they were in the wrong by dropping them on the first day of school. So I think it just depends on the district, actually. Can you use the first day of school as the same drop day for no-shows? I think that was just answered. Using the same day as the entry day for no-shows totally depends on the SIS you're using. Darla says, another question about ADM attendance. Students who are on suspension that carried over into the 22-23 school year. Since we are still providing education to these students, are we allowed to mark them on the attendance for the out-of-school suspension? And will this still be legal since they are not physically, they haven't started school?
Lori, do you want to comment on that one? Oh, she did, yes, because you are providing services.
Okay. Sydney provided some exit codes. That EdPlan doesn't recognize the following exit codes. So 9999, 1907, and 3505. So those are some that they don't recognize. If you could please include the student's name in them. Also, if they could include the student's name in the emails that are coming out of the student transfer system, that would be great. We're getting a lot of calls about students being denied. I will make a note of that, Carrie. You're welcome, Joseph. Pam has an error on class side audit for course code 000 and 3031. They use 000 for college courses and 3031 for athletics. June, do you have an?
I'm sorry, I was reading something else. Can you say that again?
Okay, we have a district that has an error on class size for course codes 0000 and 3031. They use the 000 for college classes and 3031 for athletics. I think you're getting it because they're not valid course codes. Would you agree with that, June?
I don't know what 3031 is, but the 000 is not a valid class code. And I understand that those are are you using that as a placeholder, just a place that you're grouping the students in because you know that they're going to be attending a community college or concurrent class someplace?
Okay. Kelly's, he'd like to see the STN in the export of the transfer app when they download the data. And I understand that. I think that is on an update list, but I'll confirm that with you, Kelly. Sand Springs just moved to from Wingate to Infinite Campus. We're working through some data issues. If you're waiting on us to release them, this is why. Does that have to do, Christine, or with? Does that have to do with your ed plan stuff? If you're waiting for records request, oh, okay. If you're waiting for records, I can't talk. Records request before we release them. So if anybody's waiting on a records request from Sand Springs. Power School users drop date are the same. Carrie said yes, they are. Joseph, he's looking at his class size audit. All their SPED students appear to have the status error. A few non-SPED students also have a yellow warning status. Are the errors on the non-SPED generated by the errors on the wave? Chris?
No, the errors in the student are directly related to their course section, their enrollment into rosters or class sections, according to Ryan. So if you might want to go in and look at their schedules and make sure they're scheduled correctly. And then if you're still having errors, reach out to Ryan Piper and ask him how further to troubleshoot that.
And Christine Arnold basically said the data issues, they're waiting to release them, and that has to do with ed plan. On class size audit, if we have errors, wave errors on our courses, we need to make sure those are cleaned up first, correct? Yes. Sarah logged into SSO viewing class size audit. Where would we view the errors? Okay, you're going to go to Wave integration. There's a tab for that. And then you will go to your teacher certification, your course list, and your students to see if there's any errors. For college courses, you don't code them as the high school class. Oh, well, okay, so for college courses, you code them for the high school class that is closest to the college class they're taking. And then you change something else. I can't think of what it is, but to concurrent enrollment. Would that be the same in class size, June?
Yes, and there's two things that are happening. Some districts will just create a placeholder class for scheduling, and they put all of their concurrent students into one section. So they just have that record, and generally will use a 999 or some class code that doesn't really mean anything, because it's just an internal purpose only. Some districts will create local course sections that mirror the concurrent section, and then use the state code that's the closest to that. And when you transcribe, if you don't have that one-to-one course section relationship with the concurrent classes, and then you just manually transcribe when grades come in, you would transcribe with the state code that is the closest to that content. It will work best for you in class size if your concurrent classes and your tech classes have actual course sections that correspond with what they're taking in your SIS.
Thank you, June. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I have one quick question on the placeholders. So
Okay.
some of our school districts they do have the correct section with the correct state number, but they have like holding sections using the 000 code.
Yes.
So I kind of missed that. I'm sorry. I had a call come in. They're not allowed to use 0000. Like we don't want to encourage our schools to use an invalid course number. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But so you can use it like a advisory class. You could use that kind of course code. When it comes into
Advisory.
when it comes into the class size validation, there should be a process where they can just ignore this class.
Okay.
Class doesn't mean anything. It's just like we're just monitoring these kids. Like you said, it's a placeholder as they're scheduling or to keep that section in place. They don't have to include it in there. And I believe that they're looking at ways of maybe even eliminating that by pulling also the course type where it's identified as a concurrent class. But right now you'll see them in there, and I'm not positive what their plans are for that.
Okay, that's fine. We just didn't know, because we've had a couple of people who they have the college level in there and it's reporting correctly, and that one's okay. But then they have second and third hour using 000 because they just need a placeholder.
I think you can just omit those, but check with Ryan on what that process is. There should be some kind of button where we say we don't want to include this.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. I've got the question from Sarah. So I see that would the error show up in the status column, or would the whole list populating be all of her errors?
There's an indicator to the left of each record in the class size that will be like a little yellow icon with an exclamation point in it. That means there's a problem with that record, but it's not going to tell you what the problem is. But if it's in the student level, they told me that that's directly related to their course section records, that they're not associated with a schedule, in other words, or enrolled into a class section.
All right. Well, right now there's no other questions. I really appreciate everyone for joining today. We had a really good turnout.
There's one more question. If EdPlan doesn't recognize 1907, that's because 1907 exit code means that they're leaving one school in your district and they're entering in another school in your district. So that does not send as an actual exit. It's more like you're transferring from one school to the other within your district. And that will not send as an exit record to EdPlan.
Okay, she's wanting to know what code do they use?
Well, if you use 1907, we would expect them to still be enrolled in your district because they're just going from one location to another within your district. So they would still remain active in Ed Plan. So if they're not just going within your district, you would choose a different code that shows they're going to a different district.
Okay, Darla, your class size audit is showing last year's data.
I suggest you reach out, you put in a ticket with student info, and let's make sure that you're sending the correct year's data. And let's see what we see on our side first.
Okay, so it's correct. So Ed Plan picking up the new code. So are you talking about that EXA code again, 1907?
There should be a corresponding enrollment code that shows that they're back in school in your LEA, either with no interruption or with a gap.
Okay. Did that help, Jennifer? Okay, great. Or class size. They use 99999 for emergency certification teachers. But that generates, yes, it does. And you shouldn't be using the 99999, Joseph. You have to actually supply a valid certification number. We are using adjunct numbers now as well. And from what I understand, those are being provided fairly quickly as long as everything is provided. I'm not sure about how long it's taking for your emergency certifications to get their number though.
So Joseph, when it gets closer to the time, I don't know when you submitted that request, reach out to Ryan and ask him how he wants you to handle that. We will not want an adjunct number for somebody that's applied for emergency certification. So I think they're thinking through how they're going to handle that. Just reach out to Ryan.
Okay, Margaret, the process is the staff member needs to go in and on the Oklahoma credentialing system and apply for adjunct. They'll need to provide the application, board notes approving approving them, and also do their payment. It is by the staff member.
They have to send the board minutes for the board session where that was approved. If they need to have an adjunct number before the next board meeting, they might want to consider having some emergency meetings to get those adjunct numbers approved and requested.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? All right, thank you all for attending today. We'll be posting the slides very shortly, and then it takes a little bit to get the video up, but I'll get it up today. So in the meantime, if you have any other questions, please feel free to give us an email, shout out by email. So thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of your week and a great weekend, holiday weekend at that. So talk to you next Thursday.